In this video, I will be showing you how you can use Revit's built-in project phasing system to easily and quickly develop demolition plans for your electrical building projects. So let's get into it. So here we are in Revit. I've set up an electrical project and I've linked in an architectural model. To demonstrate the built-in phasing system, your architectural model actually has to be developed properly by the architect for this to work as well. So let me zoom in here on this end of this wing. I'm going to use this architectural model first to show you how this phasing system works, and then we'll get into actually installing some electrical devices and see how we can set those up to do the same thing. But I'll call your attention to this plan, how we have a couple different line types. And the first thing we'll notice is that our goal here is to show a couple different periods in time of our project. We want to show this final product that has the existing building and some new walls and new electrical devices installed. And we also want to show another point in time back how the building exists prior to this new construction. And we want to indicate certain things to be removed or demolished. So if I jump into a demo plan, now you can see that this same room, before we added all these doors and walls, had a wall across the middle with a door. And then even down here, we can see a little dashed area here. The dash, in this case, indicates what parts of the existing building that we want to have removed or demolished. That's our goal, is to show two different periods in time in this project. Now, a project can have more than just an existing and a new phase. You could have phase A, B, and C, etc. But we're just going to show the simple, most common use of an existing with demo plans and the new construction plans. So how is this all accomplished? Well, Revit has a built-in project phasing system, which lets us identify for each piece in our model what phase it was created on and what phase it should be demolished on, if at all. And then has a set of filters and graphic overrides to change the appearance depending on the status of each of those pieces in the phasing. So let me jump right in. If you go up to the Manage tab up top, and over to the right, under Phasing, there's a Phases button. So this is the basics. You can see this is a phasing dialog box, and it has 3 tabs. The first tab is simply, what are the phases of construction in our project? And this is default. You will see there's an existing phase and a new construction phase, and that's it. If you think about it, every project has at least these 2 phases. Even if it's a brand new building, the existing phase might just be an empty lot. Then you have the new construction phase, which would be everything we add to that lot to make a building. Now then, there's other projects where existing might be an existing building that we are either going to add on to with new construction, or we may demolish part of that existing building and add some new construction within it, as in a refurbishment, remodel. So again, this is the basics of every project, and some can be more complex, but we're going to stay with this for now. Now, one major point that I'd like to bring up that you may have noticed is that there is no demolition phase. Even in a project where we are demolishing certain pieces, there is no separate phase called demolition. Yes, in actual construction, there would be a demolition phase or multiple demolition phases by the builder when they tear down parts of the building, maybe in different areas of the building over different areas of time. So there is truly demolition phasing in construction. But for our purposes of trying to document what we want to happen to this building, demolition is more of an action that happens between the existing and the new construction, and we don't need it as a separate phase. We just need to show what gets demolished, and what we do is we say it will get demolished in the new construction phase. So it kind of happens simultaneously, demolition and new construction. That'll make more sense as I get into this, but just remember, there's no separate demolition phase needed to document these projects like I've shown. And again, like I said, we can have more than 2 phases. Here we can insert some before or after these. We can also go in and change the name. I can change this from existing to just, let's call it Phase A and Phase B. So these can be changed and added to. And as you can see, it's a timeline. Past is at the top of the list and the future is at the bottom. So these need to be in a chronological order. Also, make sure you realize that, we are in our electrical model right now, and these are the phases in our model. They may not necessarily be the same phases that are in the architectural model. Towards the end of this video, I will show you how we can verify that, and in case they don't match, we can map them and make them work. So that's kind of a more advanced thing that you won't have to get into very often, but just want to call your attention to that this is what we are calling these phases in our electrical model only. So that's the first tab I want to show you. We'll get to these other tabs here in a minute. Let's get back to our plan views. And notice that the same kind of graphics can apply to a 3D view or a section or an elevation. So we can apply these same graphics to that to further explain what we want done. But we're going to do this in plan view right now. How do we set this up? How does this happen? How do we get these darker? Let me show you. As long as we're in our view, escaped a few times, we're actually in a floor plan view. At the bottom of the view, you will notice a phasing heading. And there's two parameters, a phase filter parameter and a phase parameter. So let's look at the second one first. The second one, called phase, and it says it's a built-in parameter. It specifies the phase for the current view. Now, this view is called new construction. Related to that is this thing called a phase filter. Now, this applies a filter, like it says, it controls the display of the elements based upon their phase status. If it's new, existing, demolished, there's even a temporary phase, which we're not going to deal with. So there's a lot of different phase filters that we can get into. And I'll show you how those work. I mean, if you click on this drop down, you will see that there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8 different phase filters. So it gets complex. But we'll get into that later. But right now we have this set up as show the previous. So it means anything previous to our new construction. And in our case, that would just be the existing stuff. And then also show the new stuff. So that's how we've decided what to show. And associated with that phase filter is some overrides that darken some walls and lighten others. So all that's contained in that filter. But just notice that that phase says this is a new construction phase. Now, contrast that with a demo plan. Let me jump over to this demo plan. Same room, but it's very different looking. Now, what's going on here at the bottom right? This phase is new construction. So that may be counterintuitive because this is a demo plan, but bear with me. We want to show the new construction because our phase filter is going to show the previous, which in our case, before new construction was existing, the phase before where we are now. We're showing existing. But we are also showing demo. We're showing the pieces of the existing building that the architect has flagged to be demolished. And we'll show you how we do all that flagging here next. So again, just remember that these two guys work together to set up the view to show what we want. It's all in the same model. It's all there. But this shows different stages of the construction demolition process. So let's go back to the new construction and let me show you how we assign phases to actual pieces. And the architect did this with these walls. We're going to do it with receptacles. So I'm going to go down here and I'm using my custom duplex receptacle. It's non-hosted, and I have a video which I'll link in the description below on how you can create that non-hosted receptacle. It doesn't rely on walls. So I'm going to bring in the standard receptacle and I'm going to just put it on this wall right there. Now, if you click on the receptacle and look at its instance parameters, as you remember, these are instance parameters. There's a box here also called phasing. It's a little different than a floor plan. And this one says the phase that was created. So the phase of this receptacle was created, and it was created in new construction. It's not existing. We're going to have the builder put it in as part of the new construction. Now, what phase was it demolished? Well, none. We're not demolishing this. Everything we throw in here now, because our phase for this view is set up as new construction, everything's new construction. And in a project you've done before that had no remodel, everything was new construction and you didn't have to worry about this phasing stuff. Anyway, so everything we put in here is new construction. I can create similar. Let's put another one here. And I'll show another one up on this wall. And maybe I want some here. Anyway, you'll put these in, of course, depending on your needs. And those are design decisions, but let's get these in here for now for an example. So we'll just do that for now. Those are easy. And if we go back to the demo plan, we'll see none of those show up. Again, because we have this set up to only show previous and demo. Our phase filter is not showing anything new. We take a look at our as-builts, or we go out on the job site and we notice that there's some existing receptacles in these two rooms now. We want to show those on these documents. How do we do that? So if I was to bring in a receptacle now, it would automatically be placed as new construction. So let me try that, see what happens. I'm going to put this right here. Once I put it in, I get this warning. Well, what's this warning? None of the created elements are visible in floor plan, blah, blah, blah. You may want to check the active view, its parameters, visibility settings, as well as plan regions and their settings. So you get a whole entire list of things to check about visibility. Well, I can tell you right now that the issue is with the phase filter. Our phase filter says we're only going to show the previous phases, or phase in this case, existing, and demo. We're not going to show new construction. So the receptacle that I brought in, by default, was put on new construction because that's the phase I'm set this up in. But when I installed it, I can't see it. If I go back to the first plan, there it is, because I'm allowing previous and new construction to be visible. So how do we deal with that? Well, we can go into this phase filter, and at least while we are designing, we can change its view to show all. If you say show all, you're going to see previous, new construction, everything. Demo, it's all there. So it's a nice view setting to design in if you want to design both. And I use this quite a bit when I'm trying to relay existing to new. So this is a good one to just draw in. Once I have this receptacle in here, I actually want it to be placed onto the existing phase so that I can actually demo it because it's on a wall that's coming out. So I have a couple ways to do that. Now that I've put it in, I can go through and I can change it to be existing. That will change its line weight to a lighter line weight. Now to get it to be dashed and be demolished, now I have to set the flag, I would call it, or parameter of phase demolished. I want it demolished in the new construction phase. Apply that. Now it tells it to dash it and it's on demolished, and it will still show up when I set this to previous and demo. Now it shows up. You can find the right setting for this phase filter that helps you install things. Now, if I show all and I also set the current phase to existing, that will change how things look. So the phase not only sets what phase you're in, but it also affects how it looks. So these two work together. So it takes some experimenting and some practice to figure it out. But if you can see how your end result needs to be new construction and previous plus demo for a demo plan, and then your new plan needs to be new construction with previous and new, those are the two main types of combinations you're going to use for final presentation. But again, during your work, you may need to set up different views. And you can set up a whole different view on the left. You can set up like a coordination view down here, first floor plan. Coordination may be the right view to have everything showing, like show all in new construction. This may be the view that you want to use for creating these plans, and then let these be the presentation. So we can do that. If I don't want to have to change these to existing, I can just set up my current phase to existing. And then everything I put in will be existing. As you can see, this guy here is phase created existing. I can set this to demo, or I'll show you another way we can do that. Let's get the rest of these in. So again, I'm basing this on a site visit or some as-built. This is what's there now. And we even have some receptacles on these walls. I want to get those shown. I'm trying to show a complete view of this existing situation. And let's say my as-built, say there's one here. There. So those are all existing because my current phase is existing in my coordination plan. Now, if I want to demo these, I can go back to my demo plan, which, as a reminder, is set for current phase as new construction. I mean, new construction, I want these rest of these three demoed in this new construction. I'm going to leave these, but I want these demoed. So if you go to the modify button, up here there's a little hammer, a little sledgehammer, demolish. This little guy will mark elements as demolished in the current phase. Well, my current phase is new construction. So I can simply use this hammer and demolish these. Click, click, click. That, in effect, switches their phase demolished to new construction, because that's my current phase. So that's an easy way to get to these, to demolish them. The rest of these, I'm going to leave them as existing to remain. So my demo floor plan looks like this. And you would typically add some notes to these, or some general notes, or you might point to these and say, dashed items to be removed. And we can say these are to remain as existing. And a lot of times, what I also do to document my plans is in the actual here's the new floor plan. You can see the demolished is gone and the receptacles are gone. I usually typically will notate these with some kind of a text and something like an E in parentheses to indicate that it's existing to remain. So I would typically do something like, but each firm has their own procedure. But I would do that with all these existing receptacles. And then the rest of these are by default implied as new. So that's the basics of how this works. Now, if you want to get in a little behind the scenes and see how this stuff can be modified and changed, I'll jump into that. But it can get complicated fast. So I'll just show you the basics. Back to this manage phases. We saw the two phases. Here's the phase filters, and there's, I guess it's 7, not 8. There's a whole chart here of what happens. This is a filter. If you've used any other filters in Revit, like for controlling site work versus units and things like that, you can use filters. This filter, for each filter name, controls new, existing, demolished, and then there's this other thing called temporary, which I haven't dealt with in this video. But new, existing, demolished, it shows what happens to them. For example, we used show, previous, and demo for our display. So what it means is we're not going to display anything new. The existing items we're going to override. Now, what are we overriding? Well, we're overriding the default appearance of those items that happens over in object styles. If you recall, object styles is where we set up how different categories appear in our views. So by default, we set line weight for a projection or a cut. We set up the color. We set up the line pattern. So down here into walls, we normally show things like this. And receptacles actually ends up being more of an annotation. So we have a generic annotation. We set it up as a line weight of 4, and it's black and solid. That's normal. This phase filter overrides that basic view setting to be something different. And that's when we get into the graphic overrides. So if it says overridden here, then that means we use this table, which now gets into overriding the graphics of each of these phases as this. So for example, just look at the existing. Existing gets with a pretty faint line width. Demolished gets to be a dash line, and new gets to be a heavy line. This is the projection, and then we have the cut. As you know, if you cut through a wall, it looks different than if we're looking at the top of the wall. So same idea though. We have a fainter line for existing, a dash line for demo, and a heavy line for new. These are the overrides that get applied when it says overridden, overridden. So previous and demo, and then we have the other one, which we call previous and new, which the new items show up by the normal category object style settings. The existing gets overridden to be a faint line type, and then the demolished is not displayed. So this sets up the filters and the graphics of how things look. So that's how all that works. And we don't normally need to change this. I will say, though, that some people like to change these overrides to add, for example, some color or some fill. I know architects like to add some color and even fill if they're getting rid of cabinets and things like that. Now, for us, you may like to change the color. Well, how would you change the color, for example, of demolished? Let's say we want demolished to pop. It's going to be red dashed. If we click on demolished, click on it again, here is our override panel. The pattern is called demolished, and it's a dashed line. We want to leave that. But the color says no override, so it would fall back to whatever object style says. We can override the color, go with red, say OK. Simple as that. We'll keep the line weight. And then we also want to do the same for the cut line. We want to go with a red. So we're overriding the color only. Say OK. Now if we go back to our demolition plan, there. Now the demolished items pop as red dashed. Now you may want to present this if you're doing color drawings, or maybe you only want this to happen. And like I mentioned early on, I would get at the end of this video, I want to show you a more advanced feature is matching or mapping our phases with the architects. Now, I'll link a project below. I showed a full project series for a residential type project, and the architect's phases were different than just existing and new, and I show in there how to map it. But let me show you really quick what I mean if things are not by default matching. What you can do is you need to actually click on the model. Now, right now I have select pinned elements unchecked, so I can't pick a pinned architectural model. Now I can select it, and it's kind of hidden up here, but it's a Revit link, and it's actually the linked Revit model. If I go to edit type, this is a type parameter, and I go clear to the bottom of that, this is where they're hiding the phase mapping. So it's in the models, type properties, phase mapping, edit that. This specifies which phase in the linked model is equivalent to each phase in this project. So this is my project on the left, my phasing, existing and new. And the phases in the link, or the architectural, are this. They happen to match in this situation. And frankly, most situations we found they match. But occasionally, an architect will have in here some kind of another phase, or they may name them differently. So this is where you can match them. And what you can do is you can, if you want your existing to match their other phase name, you can change it. Or if they have two phases of new construction and we want ours to match their other phase, phase B, you can do it from here and drop it down. But again, in this case, we don't have to worry about that. But this, just so you know, this is where you would find that if you need to match your phases to theirs. But that's the basics to creating demolition plans in Revit. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, I'm going to show you a video on the screen here that you can go check out, that full residential project where I take you from start to finish on a complete electrical project. So thanks for watching.